Hello, and welcome to the season 4 of Conversation with Gentle Warriors, Wisdom Warrior, brought to you by Caregiver Sathi, an initiative to provide a secure platform for individuals to share their caregiving stories, fostering unity among caregivers, and cultivating a supportive community. I'm your host, Dona Mahapatra, and I'm delighted to welcome our guest for this episode, Ruchika Handa, a life coach, an entrepreneur, and a mother of three wonderful kids. Hi, Ruchika, how are you?
Hi, Donna. I'm very well, and thank you so much for having me today.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Thank you. Let me start with the fact that I've been a caregiver for part of my life. I'm 50 today, and while growing professionally and in a personal manner, yes, caregiving has remained an integral part of my life. And being a life coach, it has made me realize on a deeper level how caregiving can be extremely demanding, yet a very rewarding learning space of your life.
Okay, so Ruchika, could you tell us how and when you became a caregiver? How did your journey begin?
Um, all right. I think as a mother, a wife, we all are caregivers in different capacities. However, on a more deeper level, my caregiving journey began when my younger son, I have three children, and the middle one is the one who had autoimmune illnesses from the age of 2.5 till about 12. So the 10 years of his life, he saw more pain and struggle than most of us go through in a lifetime. And that is when my caregiving capacities were stretched to the maximum, and I had to kind of dig really deep to be able to be there for him, while I always also was trying to be the best mother I could for my other two children and manage a home. After that, I was more of a passive caregiver to my in laws because they were both struggling with cancer, one after the other. And it was my husband who was with them actively. However, I was his backbone and told him in plain and straightforward manner, like, just go and be there with them, because we were living in Holland and they were in India. And then recently, I've just come out of the role of being a caregiver for my mother, who was also a terminal patient with lung fibrosis. She struggled for 10 years, and the last 5 years were extremely difficult for her. And I was on the plane almost every 2 months. So that was a very, very demanding time of my life. And yes, so that was the time that, again, the caregiving mantle fell on my shoulders. And now I am in a softer caregiving role for my father, who is in his 80s, enjoying good health, but yes, he's soldiering on his own. And that's where, one keeps praying to the Almighty that let him have his time now, after having been the caregiver for my mother for 10 years.
Uh, I don't know, what I can tell you right now to at least comfort you a little because you have been like caregiver for I think for a very long time, like being a caregiver to your son, to being a, distant caregiver to your in-laws and then to your mother, of course. But yeah, all the strength and love to you. And
Thank you, Donna.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, all us caregivers, like everyone is doing a great job with in whatever capacity they
Indeed.
can. And
Yeah.
yeah, and all the strength to you for, doing your part.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so
uh,
much.
Ruchika, I wanted to understand what were your thoughts and feelings when you were like a caregiver to your son, then to your in-laws, and then to your mother. What were your feelings and your thoughts when you were going through a caregiver for different
To be
persons?
right, they all require different things from me. And as I look back on that journey, I realized that we have far more in us than we think that we are capable of. And it was until I joined the caregiving community and came across this word, that I became conscious of the fact that I am a caregiver. Otherwise, I think most of us just step into that role. We never really do it from that consciousness or that awareness that this is a caregiver's role, and take a sense of pride in that. It's all about giving, but it's a very beautiful thing that the caregiving community is spreading out there, because um, it's high time coming that the caregiving community is a solid entity, and you look at yourself as a caregiver. And as I evolved through the years, especially in the last 6 months of my mother's time, and I became associated with Caregiver Sathi, I actually started thinking about myself also as the primary caregiver for me, if you get what I'm trying to, convey.
Yeah.
To all of you that are listening, please just be there selflessly for others. It's rewarding. It's also extremely painful. It's very, very hard. At the same time, be there for yourselves, because it's where you're going to get the maximum strength from.
Yeah. Ruchika, I wanted to understand, like, the where are you right now, and like what are your thoughts, like if you were given today with a similar situation, how are you going to like deal with it differently from what you did back then?
Oh, I would make sure that I have a very, very nourishing, nurturing routine for myself. Rather than be completely selfless, I would put in a little bit of selfishness, which does not mean that you're anywhere being less there for the person who needs you, but you're not just draining yourself and ruining your health in that bargain. Because once your health is gone, and I realized that at the cost of losing my health to a large extent, that you're just not thinking about yourself. So build that routine. I know it sounds cliched, but put in that kind of hard work for yourself. If you have the means, that there is an attendant with your loved one while you can go out for a walk, or a cup of tea with a friend, where you can actually breathe for that half an hour or 1 hour, where you're not really looking after someone, where somebody is able to look after you, then do it. And if you can't, then you have your phone, reach out. I think that was one of the hardest things that I did, where I had a very difficult conversation with my mother, who was uh, surviving mostly on medication by then. And we had used to have this daily struggle of her saying, okay, out of this 20 pills, take away at least a few. I can't have all of them. And so, just to kind of be in her good books, I would say, all right, Mama, don't take the aspirin today. Or because I was scared, I didn't know what to say to, like, which one do you take or which one do you not take, right? And she would just be watching TV the whole day, or just sitting. So I said, look, Mama, um, I talked to that one doctor she trusted, and he said to me to convey to you that it is not yet time for you to go. So let's do something. How long can you just sit on the or lie on the bed?
Mm.
And there was a game on the phone that I just taught her, where you have one word and you make many words out of it. So her hands used to tremble a lot. So I would, do the pressing of the buttons from her choices. Slowly, she got hooked onto it. But the conversation that I had, that it is not yet time for you to go, was so difficult that later, when I got out of the room, I was like shaking. And it was so overwhelming that I really didn't know how I could get out of that overwhelm and feel normal again. So I just wrote the story on my Facebook page, and there were so many people that could empathize with that, but they said we never really had the courage to say that. So thank you for sharing that, and yeah, I hope that you have more ease in your journey with your mother. And that was like, so if you have your phone at your hand and you can't get away from your loved one for a while, then do that. It's hard, but it's like the world then responding to you, and you're getting so much more strength.
Yeah, so true. Um, Ruchika, can you share some of your challenges and frustrations that you had in this journey? Because I'm very sure many of the caregivers are going through that, and most of us don't speak it out because we feel guilty of having that frustration because we are taking care of our loved one and we feel that we should not have that. So, what was it for you like?
Yes, it's an emotionally intense space to be in, and the guilt kind of corrodes away at you inside for feeling frustrated at times and also angry at times because you feel helpless, and yet there seems to be no end to that situation if it's a terminal disease and day by day you're watching your loved one deteriorate. Mm, the frustrations are both on the emotional level as well as practical level, because slowly now I'm being case specific, so bear with me here and see how it helps you. Like in my case, with my mother, when we had to literally convert our home into a hospital environment with a bed that had a reclining back support, then an oxygen cylinder, then the maintenance of the machines. So yes, the hospitals do have those contacts, but nobody really walks you through the steps of what would make the patient a little more comfortable, or things like that. And it's all hit and trial that you go through, and mostly at the cost of the patient's suffering. And you feel so frustrated that had somebody pointed out that this equipment could be better used that way, then it would have saved so much stress. And the fact that many a times a very sick patient doesn't really need to be taken to the hospital for a small illness, but we don't have that system of a doctor who can just come and visit and take care of that small problem rather than the huge challenge of taking a very ill patient in your own car or calling an ambulance to the hospital. So those were the kind of yeah, the stresses that were really things that could have been avoided. So that's where then I think the community can really come forth, where if you could put out that, hey, do you know of a doctor, which is what I did, and through Caregiver Sati finally found a doctor who was available on call, and he actually came twice or thrice. So my mother spent about 3 months avoiding the hospital. Otherwise, for even a small thing, we would take her, and it would be very, very painful and torturous for her.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying about not being aware of a lot of things, and then you feel frustrated that only if somebody would have told me this, I would have like it would have helped me, and
Right.
it would have reduced my stress for like yeah, but yeah, I think it's also a part where we learn from the journey, and that is why we have, taken up this initiative so that when we are discussing these stories, we let people know that, okay, these are the things that might help you reduce your stress or help you with your journey of caregiving. Uh,
So
Ruchika,
true.
yeah, so can you tell me, like, what were the most important things that you learned through your caregiving experience?
What I've realized that is that having a few skills really makes the journey easier, which is first of all being more organized. Now, when the doctors are giving you, files and reports and things like that, unless you don't kind of create your own filing system, If you're rushing to the hospital, you might take the whole thing with you, and the most important paper might be somewhere, lost in the bundle. And so be more organized. Question a lot. The doctors pay you visits with in 2 minutes. They'll tell you what's the latest update, and then go, and you'll be wondering what to make of that. You have a right to ask questions. Please do. And if you have multiple hospitals that you visit, make your own kind of a history, because so many times when you're going from one to another hospital, and you need to give them the backup, how can you memorize all of that, especially when you're stressed out in reaching there and things like that. Like with my son, we were moving homes between countries, and he literally like had a folder for Holland, another folder for Nigeria, then India. So I had made like a one-page history, and when we were in India, I handed all the 3 files to the doctors, and I said, this is my history of his illness from day one. And they went through it, and they said, this is actually more useful than these 3 fat files. Right? So make sure that you have understood the problem, the illness, in a way that you can relate to as a non-medical person. Do that. Secondly, don't isolate yourself if you're a long-term caregiver. Take the time to be a part of those people who are your friends, supporters, or family, by not just telling them about your problem, but also asking them what's going on in their life. Otherwise, you may end up like 5 years later or 10 years later, not really aware of what's going on with them. And that does make it difficult to re-enter life as a regular person. If you can't go there for their special day, make sure you do that video call. So have those happy moments in your life through others. If you're not able to, celebrate your own milestones, because all your energy, all your time is going in for that. These relationships that are normal relationships are the ones that are the breathing life for you. And whatever level you are at financially, make sure you have the support. If you can't have a full-time maid, just ring your neighbor's doorbell. They will not turn you away. They will be able to say, okay, sure, if you're rushing back from the hospital, let us know. We'll have a meal ready for you. Learn how to, sometimes if you get the time, cook like a lot of some vegetable or whatever that can be frozen, so that if you don't get the time, at least you'll be able to just take it out of the fridge and feed yourself well. If you can't go out and exercise, do something at home. Do a yoga, do jumping, do whatever it takes, but do that. So maintain your physical fitness. It's a long journey. And for your mental health, reach out to the community group that you're a part of, or be a phone call away from somebody when you've reached your limit and you have to vent it out. So your emotional health, your physical health have to be good. And you have to be selfish enough that if it means leaving your loved one to look after themselves, so long as they're well fed, their medications, everything, just step out. Being with them 24/7 isn't healthy for them or for you. So communicate well, don't isolate, look after your mental health, be good at your organization. And very importantly, have something fun going on for you, even if it is like, for me, I am a Scrabble addict. So I play online Scrabble, and I could do that while waiting in a hospital lounge, right? I'm not asking you to get addicted to it, but this is like a lifeline, and you'll discover the benefit of having had fun when you had nothing more to do except wait it out in a hospital lounge. So do that. And if you can journal or whatever, just write your thoughts out. So these are the things that I kept on doing. And if I broke the routine, doesn't matter. But I had that to kind of bank upon. And it got me out in a more wholesome way from the whole journey of caregiving than it would have had I just been thinking of nothing else except the person.
Sorry, I was on
I've lost
mute.
the, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, it is so true. Like in the entire process, we just forget to take care of our well-being, or, find a way to just take a break. So that is something we all should do, which is so true. Yeah. Ruchika, how did you manage? Like, you are an entrepreneur and you had you're a caregiver as well. So how did you manage the entire the and everything, like the responsibility towards your work, your family, and also towards yourself, right? Like you had to take care of yourself as well. So how did you manage the everything?
I started with the approach that I can't do everything by myself. I first accepted that, and then I built up the whole structure. And the primary people in that were my husband, who supported me when it was my time to be there for my mother, as I was supporting him when it was his time. And then the key people in my life where I lived, because my caregiving had me traveling a lot earlier. And when my young son was younger, then it was, yeah, based there. But then the friends who I just asked, like, can you look after my daughter when I have to be there for my mother? Because my husband has a 9 to 5 job, so he couldn't be there to, like, pick up my daughter after school every time. So things like that. I was very clear about which areas I wanted the help in, and the fact that I would have to scale back. It did hit us financially, yet that is something that we swallowed and kind of looked to the Almighty and said, all right, in due time, we will be able to make up. But now is the time to make these hard decisions and also line up the support system. And then it all just kept working out. I never really tried to control everything. All I did was be very honest with people from whom I required the support. And as I said earlier, then it wasn't a one-way road that, okay, they helped me and so it was over. No, I work hard at maintaining those relationships, even after my caregiving role is over. And I'm sensitive towards them so that should it be their time to require support, then I'm always ready to offer to whatever capacity that I can reciprocate.
Was it difficult for you to ask for help?
Initially, yes, because you have that conditioning that family is family and friends are friends, and beyond the point, you should not rely, or rather, overextend your asks. Um, so that's where I hesitated a lot. However, I just kind of checked in with myself, like, what are my intentions here, right? And today it is my parents. Tomorrow it could be somebody else's parents. So if not now, then when am I going to ask for help? And beyond that, then I didn't hear that voice in my head that was saying, hey, you know what, you shouldn't, it's asking too much of them. It would keep going on in my head. I was just ignore it because I relied on the purity of my intentions and also the humanity in the other person.
And
And I was never
like,
refused.
Okay. How did your friends respond when you initially asked them for their help?
They just frankly said, just keep telling us what you need of us. You don't have to give us long explanations also, because we can see that the two of you have been just getting on a plane one at a time, and this is an incredible journey that we are even witnessing. It's going on so long for you that it's not there wasn't much of a break between the three parents. So had it been that also, then you have the time to recuperate, but it was one parent after the other. And so yeah, I think we really didn't have to speak our case, and the offer of help just kept pouring in all the time.
That's nice to have like a support system. I think
Yes.
there are a lot of people who are not blessed to have such nice friends and a support system, and they might struggle for that. But yeah, I think
Here I
blessed
would
up.
just kind of pitch in to say that yes, we are extremely grateful for each and every one of them. But even if you don't have those friends, just knock on your neighbor's door, because everybody is a human at the end of the day. And to whatever extent they can, they will. And that's how it starts. It's it can be any which way. That's where miracles happen, when you overcome your idea of what to expect or not to expect. I think the best way forward is to not expect anything at all. Just lay your heart open, be vulnerable, and let them see your pain.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us would find that difficult to do, start with, to be
Yeah,
vulnerable and yeah, even to show, I mean, even to let our family know that we are in pain would be a struggle for most of us. But yeah, as you correctly said, that, miracles happen that way when we open up ourselves to people. Uh,
indeed. I've had so many instances, and they are small in themselves, but they are profound in that moment because they take a huge weight off your shoulders.
Ruchika, what are the things that that you did to make you feel confident and in control, despite of all these stressful situations that you had been in?
I think I would kind of repeat my answer from the previous question to this one, that the biggest thing I did for myself was to start opening up. And it's something that in our society, and that's a big difference I see between the East and the West, that in our society we are so conditioned to present ourselves as, oh, how are you? I'm fine. Whereas you ask this question of somebody, and they would be like, hi, you know what, I've had this, and they'll tell you without like breaking down or things like that, but they'll tell you the truth of what they're going through in the moment. It's been one of my biggest learnings in life, and that's what I would pass on to you. The confidence to be you, to reduce the stress, is to let it out. And believe you me, but the other person would actually be relieved to know that, okay, so this person has recently lost her mother and is in a grieving space, so that that person can moderate their responses or the conversation accordingly, rather than to later on regret for having been too funny or too callous or too insensitive, because they didn't know that there was a grieving person in front of them, and they were being just funny or whatever.
True. Uh,
That is me
so
owning me in that moment of
yeah,
life of whatever I'm going through.
yeah, true. So Ruchika, like with all of this, how did you ensure that, you were able to, like you did talk about a self-care routine that you have. So how did you ensure that you did have that routine in place with everything? else happening, the caregiving, the other things. So how did you maintain that routine, self-care routine for yourself?
See, it doesn't take much to keep that in place. Even if you're spending a lot of time in the hospital and I'm feeling like walking, I'll just walk the corridors. I ensured that I would wear comfortable shoes so that I don't get exhausted because I have to be on my feet for the next 8 hours. Now, I developed osteoporosis about a year and a half ago. It's the most severe in my spine. So I started taking assistance at the airport. Now, that is such a big kind of a judgmental area because the worst judgment comes from perhaps your own, who will say, well, you look absolutely fine. Why would you need that? Yeah, I look fine because I work at it, yet I'm not fine if I have to be on a 14-hour journey. And after getting off the plane, I have to go straight to the hospital. But if I'm exhausted and in a lot of pain, how can I be there for somebody else? So, yeah, you do you. You just take care of yourself, and the less you stop kind of hiding behind reasons or justifications, the better you will be at your self-care routine.
That's some great insights, I would say. Uh, so, Ruchika, in your the entire caregiving journey, can you share some joyful moments that you had, say, with your kid or your parents or in-laws?
Indeed. Like my son and I spent a lot of time in hospitals, so um, he was very fond of this video game called Subway Surfers. So while he would be in a lot of pain with an IV in his arms, we would still manage to have these competitions. And that's like the first thing my mind goes to, that whether we were in an ambulance or a hospital, we were both busy gaming away, fighting with each other to take another turn or things like that. So that's a happy time of those 10 years when he was old enough to game. And then with my own mother, once I went when she was still able to get out and about with the help of oxygen, I said, this birthday I want us to go to Agra. There was a lot of resistance, but I just dug in my heels. And so from Noida to Agra, we went by a taxi, and we had already checked out the hotel had the wheelchair and all that. So it's such a beautiful memory of a birthday with them in Agra, where I felt like a little kid, just the three of us. And yeah, and then with my mother-in-law, when I did go there once, she was in hospital for chemotherapy. It was her birthday, and she was just a great at baking cakes. So she had baked a cake for all the nurses and the doctors. So we went to the hospital, and she was like, I want to cut the cake now. And we were all like, but the doctors aren't here. But she couldn't hold her enthusiasm. So I remember that was her last birthday. But we had a birthday celebration there, and thank God for that we didn't say, all right, mama, let's wait and let the doctors come or whatever. Not, we just did it. So that's what I would say, that whatever it is that you or your loved one want to do, if you can make it happen, do it. It'll be an unforgettable memory that will always be yours.
Yeah, so true. Uh, Thank you so much, Ruchika, for sharing your story with us. And even though I know that every caregiving story is different or unique, but obviously we get a lot to learn from each of our stories and get insights. And I really hope that this episode help other caregivers with their journey. There's something else I would want you to tell our viewers is for this season, we have started something called Warrior Wisdom. So, what is
Okay.
your warrior wisdom that you want to share with the viewers?
To make sure that you do everything in your power so that you don't regret it later on, which may include even fighting with your loved ones to make them do something, or even manipulating them so that what needs to be get done gets done. Otherwise, you will spend so many sleepless nights thinking, I wish, I had done that. So do all of that. And after that, you can rest easy so that whatever the outcome is, it's it's just flowing, and you in no way have slowed it down.
That's some really nice warrior wisdom, put. And I'm very sure that we have a lot to learn from your journey and your story. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and a delight to be able to answer your questions. I would be lying if I said they were easy to answer. No, it was, I had to go deep within myself, but it was very, very, very cathartic. And I hope that all of you listening there are able to take away something that makes your caregiving journey a little lighter.